Shalom, welcome. Welcome to Midrash Arovas Parshat Hashavua Shur and Chanukah Sameach. This week's Parsha is Parshat Miketz from the book of Bereshit, and my name is Berg. And let's talk about the messages that this Parsha has to give us. Baruch HaGever Asher Yiftach B'Hashem V'Haya Hashem Miftacho. Baruch HaGever Asher, blessed is a person who trusts in Hashem, and Hashem will give him security. Once upon a time, there was a man who lived in the time of the Romans, and he was a trader, and he had a boat full of all his possessions and all his merchandise, and the boat was sitting in the harbor in Caesarea, and he had to go down the boat and go off to overseas and bring his merchandise there and earn lots of money. And the boat was supposed to leave at a certain time, and obviously in those days they didn't have telephones. And he was coming down to the harbor from a nearby hill. He looked into the harbor of Caesarea, and he saw his boat waiting there with all his merchandise on it, all his money on it was over there. And he decided, look, it was getting late, so he started running down the hill as fast as he could. Oh no! He fell, and a massive thorn went into his big toe, under the nail. Oh, so sore. And he tried to walk, he couldn't walk. So he got up with a stick and he hobbled down, moving slowly down to the boat. As he was doing this, he saw the boat pull up the anchor, and the boat went out to sea. And he stood there, watching all his money going off into the distance. No chance to get that money back. And he was lost. He was left a poor person, plus a very, very sore toe. Why, Hashem? Why did you do this to me, Hashem? He cried out. Why did I lose all this? Why did I get this painful wound? The answer came 2 weeks later. The answer came 2 weeks later when he heard the boat was lost at sea, and everyone on the boat was killed, but his life was saved. And so, bad situation turned out for the good. That is what happened, and that teaches us that sometimes Hashem does things to us, and in the end, they difficult things to understand, but in the end, they're for our good. We sometimes don't understand, but in the end, they're for our good. And so we meet over here Yosef. Yosef's in prison. Wow, in prison, and Parsha opens up and says, Vayehi miketz shnatayim yamim. After 2 years, he spent another 2 years in prison. And the question is why? Why did he spend a whole new 2 years in prison? Rashi gives us an answer in the last week's Parshat Vayeshev. And what does Rashi say? The Parsha tells us that the man, Sarah Mashkim, did not report to Paro and did not tell Paro about him. And did not, he promised to Yosef that he'll mention Yosef to Paro, and the man just forgot about him. And the Torah says, "V'lo zachar Sarah mashkim et Yosef, vayishkachehu." He did not remember Yosef, and he forgot about him. And then, and then after two years later, suddenly things started changing. Comes around Rashi and says, "What happened over here? Why did this man forget Yosef?" And so Rashi on the Chumash says, "Mipnei shetalabo Yosef bitchono." Yosef trusted in this man, lezochreu, to remind him, to remember him and tell him to Paro, and therefore huskak liot asur shtei shanim. Therefore, he had to be in prison for another whole 2 years. And Rashi brings the pasuk from Tehillim Mem, Ashrei HaGever Asher Sam Hashem Miftacho. Happy is the man who puts his trust in Hashem, V'lo panai l'rahavim, and does not wait for other people, in this case the Mitzrim, the Egyptians, to take care of him. Happy is the man. Happy, that's what it has to be. And so we learn over here, we learn from this whole thing that we have to have trust in Hashem. We have to have bitachon b'Hashem. And what is bitachon b'Hashem? We have two concepts. The first concept is emunah b'Hashem. What's emunah in Hashem? Emunah in Hashem is to believe in God. We say twice a day, we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We declare our faith in Hashem. Bitachon b'Hashem is trust in Hashem. A different concept completely. We have to have trust in Hashem. Whatever Hashem does to us is for the good. Just like we learned in that story. That story from the Gemara. And here, we have a very wonderful book called Chovot HaLevavot, in English, Duties of the Heart, which was written about 700-800 years ago. And here, to explain what Bitachon b'Hashem, he brings the story of a baby. A mother has a beautiful baby. Oh, what a wonderful baby. The baby one day is smelly, dirty, needs to be washed, needs to be diapered. The mother takes the clothes off the baby, rah! Puts the baby in hot water. Rah! The baby's screaming. The baby doesn't understand what's going on. Suddenly the baby's going to be killed. The baby thinks he's dying. He's being put in hot water. What's my Ima doing to me? But the mother knows that everything is for the good. He needs to be put into water. He needs to be clean. It's for his good. The mother takes him out of the water. She dresses him, diapers him, nurses him, and then he's content. Oh, now he understands. It was awful. He feels so good. That is the way we have to relate to Hashem. Sometimes Hashem puts us in the water. Hashem turns us over. He pulls and pushes us. We don't understand what's going on. We have to realize Hashem is like that mother, doing everything that is good for us, and everything that He does for us is for the good. One of the sources that speak about Bitachon b'Hashem, that is very important, is the Maharal. The Maharal, in his book Nativot Olam, a wonderful book, speaks about ways of the world, has a nativ, has a chapter on Bitachon, trusting in Hashem. And this is very, very important, and has a beautiful message for us. What does he say? He brings a pasuk from Mishlei, chapter Gimel. And what does it say? Betach el Hashem b'chol levavcha v'al binatcha al tisha'en. Trust to Hashem with all your heart and don't rely on your own understanding. So what does this mean? Trust to Hashem. Says the Maharal, a person has to trust in Hashem, but he still has to make a hishtadlut. He has to make an effort to do things. He cannot just sit around. He has to learn for the test. He has to do the test. He has to take his driving lesson. He has to go on a date. He has to whatever. He has to work for a living. While he's doing that, he has to trust in Hashem. Goes hand in hand. Lo ein somchim al haneh, says the Maharal. We do not rely on a miracle. According to the Gemara, we do not rely on miracles. We have to make an effort to do what we can. And then he goes on and says a beautiful idea, which I'd like to share with you. And he says the following. He says, not only, he explains the way the whole thing works. He says, I'll read, and he says, B'shat ha'ma'aseh, yasim bitchono machshavto el Hashem yitbarach. While he's making a hishtadlut, while he's doing what he has to do, he has to put his trust and his thoughts to Hashem. And he has to think that Hashem will help him whatever needs to be helped with. In other words, I would say that it's like prayer to Hashem. Trusting in Hashem is like praying to Hashem. It's like we constantly have to pray to Hashem and talk to Hashem. So we constantly have to have this trust in Hashem. And that's what it's all about. While we're working and doing what we have to do, we have to actively, an active thing, to constantly reach out to Hashem and put our trust in Hashem, knowing that whatever happens in the end will be for our good. Whatever happens in the end will be for our good. That's how the Maharal explains this pasuk. Betach el Hashem. We have to actively put our trust to Hashem. We have to work at it in order to have that joy of knowing that everything is for the good and seeing the results of our endeavors. And so that's how the Maharal explains this. Now, that's what we see in our parasha. And this parasha always comes out in Chanukah. The Chashmonaim, the Maccabees, they were a small bunch of people. Many of the Jewish people already become like the Greeks. Many of the Greek was the biggest empire in the world. And they led the revolt against the Greeks. Says the Maharal, the main miracle was to overcome the Greeks. And afterwards we had the miracle of the victory of light over darkness in the menorah. And so this little bunch of people, they did what they had to do, and they trusted in Hashem. They put their faith and trust in Hashem. And Hashem did this wonderful miracle, and we overcame the Greeks, and we lit the light in the menorah. And so what's the connection between this parasha and Chanukah? It always turns out in Chanukah. The answer is very clear. Just like the Chashmonaim, like Yosef should have trusted in Hashem, so the Chashmonaim trusted in Hashem. And that's the message of this parasha coming out in Chanukah. Trust in Hashem, and that'll help you. And so we sang in the beginning of the session, Baruch HaGever Asher Yiftach B'Hashem. The more you trust in Hashem, the more Hashem will give you security. An interesting question was asked to Rav Moshe Feinstein, who passed away about 35 years ago. Rav Moshe Feinstein, in his Zikrot Moshe, is asked, hey, am I allowed to take out life insurance? If I take out life insurance, I'm not trusting in Hashem. And that's what Rav Moshe Feinstein was asked, and he writes in Orach Chaim, he writes as following, and he says as follows. He says, Leika Chisron Bitochon B'Hashem. Taking insurance is not a lack of trust in Hashem. Taking insurance is like any other financial earnings and financial things that you take out, undertakings that you take out, that a person is allowed to do and has to do. And so it's not trusting in Hashem. It's not mistrusting in Hashem. It's trusting in Hashem, doing what you can to make sure that your financial situation will be better when you're older, or God forbid, when a person passes away, that his family will be financially taken care of. And so that's really part of his ishtadlut. Taking a life insurance is part of your ishtadlut. But like we learned from the Maharal, why you do that, you have to have your trust in Hashem, knowing that everything will be for the good. Whatever happens is for the good. Midat HaBitachon is a hard midah to work on, but it's something that we all have to work on, as we saw over here. And then let's repeat once again. Baruch HaGever Asher Yiftach B'Hashem. Blessed is the person who trusts in Hashem, and Hashem will give him that security. Have a Shabbat Shalom and a Chanukah Sameach.